What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are continuing our dive into the IBEW Constitution. We are picking up where we left off. We were talking about Article 2, which discusses the International Convention. We were talking about how delegates were, how the amount of delegates were allotted to each local union last time. But today we're going to pick up Article 2, International Convention, and we're going to pick up where we left off. We'll be covering Section 10. So grab your Constitution. My Constitution that I'm using is from the 39th IBEW Convention in 2016 because I do not have a copy of the newest one yet, and I doubt you do either if you're in the IBEW. It takes a while for these booklets to get published. So, while we are reading old news per se, we're talking about the International Convention, and I don't think much changed as regard with the International Convention and the proceedings. Before we dive into Section 10, hit the like button, subscribe button, drop your comments, ring the notification bell, share the videos, and all that good stuff. All right? So, without further ado, let's dive on in. Section 10. No member shall be nominated as a delegate or alternate unless he is present or signifies his willingness in writing. Nor shall he be eligible to be a delegate or an alternate unless in continuous good standing in his local union at least 24 months immediately prior to nominations, provided his local union has been in existence that long. You know, sometimes local unions get their charter and it hasn't been 2 years. But if your local union has been in existence for 2 years, you better be a member in good standings for 2 years prior to the nomination. And you have to be present or have submitted a letter that signifies that you're accepting the nomination. All right. However, no such member shall be disqualified because their local union has been merged or amalgamated with another local union or local unions, period. When it is impracticable, or impossible for a local union to elect a delegate or alternate with the required standing, the IP may grant special dispensation. All right, so I don't know what conditions would exist that would make it impracticable or impossible for your local union to elect a delegate, but, you know, act of God or whatever, you can't do it. The IP can grant special dispensation. The 2-year membership requirement shall not be applicable to members of local unions affiliated with system councils who are employed by a single employer and who transfer between local unions within a system council, provided, however, that any such member must have been a member in continuous good standing for 2 years in at least one of the local unions affiliated with the system council involved. Bottom line is, if you want to take part in any of this stuff, you got to keep your dues up to date, don't fall into arrears, and be a member in good standing. That's the bottom line. Where the local union bylaws specify prior to election to a particular elective office that one of the functions of said elective office shall include service as a delegate to the International Convention or other body, a special election of the officer holding such office to be a delegate is not necessary. So that means in your local union bylaws, if it specifies that this particular office is automatically a delegate to the IC, then there's no need for a special election. That's what that's telling us. In the event a vacancy should occur in the said elective office and it is filled pursuant to Article 16, Section 16 prior to May in the convention year, the local union shall elect a replacement delegate. In the event a vacancy should occur in the said elective office and it is filled pursuant to Article 16, Section 16 prior to May in the convention year, the local union shall elect a replacement delegate. I wonder why. Let's turn to Article 16, Section 16, and see if we can figure it out. Article 16, Section 16 tells us vacancies occurring in, oh, that's on page 56 if you're following along. Section 16 says vacancies occurring in any local union office and the examining board shall be filled by the local union executive board until the next regular election, except when filled by the international president. The eligibility requirements for election to the office shall apply. Vacancies in the position of press secretary, registrar, door foreman, or inspector shall be filled by the local union president. So vacancies occurring in any LU office and the examining board shall be filled by the executive board until the next regular election, except when filled by the IP. The eligibility requirements for election to the office shall apply. Vacancies, okay. So you still got to be a member in good standing for 24 months, but the executive board would have filled that seat if it happened before an election. So that said, if it happens that way, they will have to run an election in order to have their delegate. The person appointed to fill the particular elective office shall be a candidate for election as a delegate. So even though the executive board is filling that seat, the person that you fill it with will then have to win an election to be the delegate. If, however, the vacancy is filled between May in the convention year and the holding of the IC, oh yeah, that's another thing. This is if all of this occurs prior to May of the convention year. If it happens after May of the convention year, then a different set of circumstances is what comes up, and this is what it's going to describe here. So if it happens between May of the convention year and the convention, the person appointed to the vacancy in the elective office will serve as a delegate, except that as provided by law, that delegate may not vote in an election for international officers. So that person at that convention who was appointed by the E-board to fill that seat, if it happens after May, they cannot vote for the IP or any of the officers. All right. Delegates and alternates shall be elected by secret ballot. Members in good standing in the local union shall be given at least 15 days of notice of the time, place, and manner of making nominations and of the election, and may participate therein, except for those who may be expressly prohibited by approved provisions of the local union bylaws. The election of delegates and alternates shall be decided by those receiving the most votes and ballots, and records of the election shall be retained for 1 year. So whoever wins the most votes gets to go as a delegate, and it's basically ranked choice. So it's the most votes, the second most votes, third most votes, and it gets ranked that way. Okay. If between the election and the international convention an elected delegate should resign or otherwise be unable to attend the IC, then the alternate delegate with the highest number of votes in the election shall take their place as a delegate. If a second elected delegate resigns, then the one with the second most votes will take place of that person at the convention, and so forth and so on as you go with resignations. In the event there are no other elected alternates, the executive board shall appoint such delegates, provided, however, those appointed delegates may not, as provided by law, vote in any election for international officers. I'm going to leave it there because section 10 was very long. But section 10 tells you about the nomination process. It tells you the requirements for nomination, and it tells you about how this election goes about and who gets to be a delegate and vote at the international convention. So that's section 10. I hope you found this video informative as we read along together, reading rainbow style. Don't forget, man, you're watching Union Minded, and the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. It's going to take class solidarity to win always. Each one, teach one, get out there, reach one. And there can be no union without you and I, front and center. Peace.